This is a presentation on accessibility overview. And accessibility for us at Palomar College means making all electronic documents that you distribute be accessible to students with disabilities. And so we'll learn a little bit more about how to do that as we go along here. So just to get a general definition of what is accessibility, generically it is the design of products, devices, services, or environments for people with disabilities. The concept of accessible design ensures that someone might have direct access who has a disability, just such as a deaf person being able to read captions on videos. And there's also something called indirect access, where perhaps a student who has sight disabilities needs to use assistive technology to read what's on the computer screen or what's in the document to them, and they use assistive technology for that. And so we'll make our documents work well with this assistive technology. So for the faculty at Palomar College, we are concentrating on any electronic document that are distributed to students that they've implemented the minimum standards required by law. And I'll go ahead and explain what that's all about. So these standards that are required by law, where do they come from? There's two main provisions at the federal level. There's the Americans with Disabilities Act, or the ADA, a law you may have heard of, and there's also the 1998 revision of Section 508, you'll often hear that, 508, to the something called the Rehabilitation Act. Now you don't need to look at either of these. We're going to give you the minimum things that you need to look at, and it's not too bad, fortunately, but these are the main driving laws that have kick-started all this. And it's interesting to note that this is driven by something from 1998, and at the time of this recording, it's 2019. So a lot of people have let this go. They haven't paid attention to it. They weren't aware of it. And eventually it caught up to the federal government and state government in California, the importance of doing this, not just for the to help the students, which is the main reason for the law, but there have been legal liabilities as well for people who haven't addressed this properly. So there is something that we're going to be telling you about called the OEI Course Design Rubric. And it has 4 sections in it, but I'm going to concentrate just on the 4th section, or Section D, which goes over about a 16-item list or so of fairly simple, fairly straightforward things that you need to look at and consider for every kind of document you might distribute to a student. And remember, a document, you could be teaching a lecture class and send out the syllabus as an attachment to an email in a Microsoft Word format, and that would count. You would have to check your Microsoft Word syllabus to make sure it met these minimum standards that I'll tell you about as we go along here. So, as I mentioned, why is this required now? The federal government has taken notice that these laws are not being followed. And I mentioned as well that they recently updated this Rehabilitation Act and created new expectations for accessibility standards in higher education. Now, our chancellor is encouraging, I put in quotes in bold, all districts to improve accessibility on campus. I have been in a room with him where I heard him encourage people to do this, and you got the feeling that at some day, if we don't do this, that encouragement will turn into something much stricter than that. So we'd like to be a part of this and get things done early on so things don't get imposed upon us and we can get ahead of the curve. So there is legal liability for the district. A district could always be sued if we don't do this. If a disabled student feels like these minimum standards aren't being followed and brings it to our attention and we don't do anything about it, we could incur some legal liability. Colleges have gotten sued for noncompliance. The more practical thing in the immediate area is accreditation review. Our accrediting bodies will be looking at this more carefully this time around. So we need to get ready over the next couple of years. Again, this is in 2019 when this recording is being made. We need to be ready for their review and have addressed this properly. So who are we really trying to help? Well, generally, the main kinds of disabilities that we can deal with in documents are people who have hearing, they're either hearing disabled or impaired, or sight disabled or impaired. Those are the two main disabilities that we can help address through doing these things to electronic documents. The general rule for making a document accessible is if they can't hear it, let them see it. If they can't see it, let them hear it. So here's a big one in people's lives is finding the time to do this. You may think, oh boy, another big thing I got to do. The nice thing is we're breaking this up into parts, and the doing of it can be done in parts, as I'll explain. That we're using a phased-in training approach that we're looking for faculty documents to be dealt with first. Things that you create, your Word documents, your PDFs, web pages. So we're going to talk in these early sessions and on this early training about the little steps that you need to go through to make sure things are up to snuff with accessibility. And we'll get that right first. And then we're going to deal more with external documents and software. So anything that you use in a website or you distribute to your students needs to meet these accessibility standards, whether or not you created it. So in the phase 2 of training, that'll come later, probably in late fall or early spring of 1920, we will be dealing with the kinds of things you need to look at to make sure that a document is accessible, or what steps that you will be allowed to take to help bring it up to the proper standards. There's a lot of emphasis on OER these days and using outside resources to save students the cost of textbooks and what have you. So this is going to be becoming a bigger and bigger deal. So when does this all due, right? Well, we're giving you some general target dates. There's no explicit date at this point where the hammer comes down on us, but I would say that date is when the accreditation people come here, and that's in 2022, I believe. It could be fall of 21 or spring of 22. So we've got a couple of years overall, but even as we go through getting our self-created documents remediated, we're recommending by the end of the fall semester that you've done that first pass, and then we're going to target by the end of the spring semester for handling external documents, which training will be provided later. This first go-around that you're viewing now is just about documents that you created. And there'll be exceptions and things that we need to handle, and the ATRC and Distance Education Coordinator are here to help. This is an ongoing effort. It is a culture shift. It's something that we aren't going to just do it once and then forget about it. We have to get ourselves in a position where this becomes part of our normal work as we create new documents or as we bring new documents into our websites or distribute them to students. Then we will need to check them for accessibility. One thing we need to do, and that's really as of now, if anybody complains directly and says, hey, this isn't working for me, we have an obligation to begin to work on it immediately, to begin to address it. And we have the DRC as well to help you with that should something come up in a more immediate basis before all this training is out. One nice thing that you'll see as I go on further in this presentation is you'll see that even the work of remediating old documents and making sure they're accessible, the work can be spread out over time and broken up into bits in such a way that it'll work into your life. This isn't the kind of thing where you're going to have to reserve a week or two out of your life and just power through it. It definitely can be broken up. And to that end, I'm recommending that you start tracking what documents you do distribute. You may want to put together a spreadsheet of documents that you're distributing. And I recommend you do it by document type. So examples of document type are Canvas content pages, web pages that you might have, MS Word, Excel, PowerPoint files, PDFs, any audio or video files you have, MP3 or MP4 files, or any other types that you might distribute. Generally speaking, these are the main ones that we use. And so I'm going to end this presentation here, this particular video, and we're going to pick up and go into some more detail in the next video.